Is this hard for anyone? Is anybody like, oh my gosh, this sounds really shady? So Strzok's first lie didn't work. Now he's on lie number 2, which doesn't work either. Peter Strzok, who was the lead FBI investigator into the spying operation by the FBI on Donald Trump, wrote a book. Now, ladies and gentlemen, as a writer of 5 books, people always ask me what it's like to be what's it like to be an author? I go, I have no idea. I'm just a guy who writes books. You don't write books. Not an author. Peter Strzok apparently thinks he is an author, wrote a book and got the central thesis of his book entirely wrong, which is kind of incredible because he's the FBI agent assigned to spy on the Trump campaign using FISA warrants. Weird. Now, as I said, having been a former agent myself, if you ask me about any of my cases, the credit card fraud case, the credit master case, the license fraud case we have, I can tell you exactly what happened in each case, how we got it. My last case in Baltimore, my first case in Melville, Long Island, I remember how they all came in. Weird that Peter Strzok's investigating only the biggest case of probably counterintelligence case of anybody's lifetime, and he can't remember basic details of how the case even started. Weird. We called him out on this the other day due to a tip we got on social media from, again, Hans Monkey. But this is written up by Jerry Dunleavy, the great Jerry Dunleavy in Washington Examiner. The story will be in the show notes. I strongly encourage you to read it. Washington Examiner, I got that wrong. Gee, did you ever? Peter Strzok admits he botched the timeline on the opening of the Trump-Russia investigation. This guy, ladies and gentlemen, is a tier 1 dunce. I'm pretty sure, given the penetration of our show into the populace at large here and how big it's become, someone probably sent him the clip the other day of us pointing out the obvious failures of his case and his book, how it's a lie. And now he's forced to go public and say, yeah, my book's wrong. I screwed the whole thing up. You screwed a lot of things up, Pete. There's a bad joke in there too, which we'll leave out for another day. But from the Washington Examiner piece, yes, I do. Let's go back and just rewind a bit. How Strzok screws up in his own book, how he opened up his own case. Quote, Jerry Dunleavy. Strzok incorrectly claimed in his new book that Australian diplomat Alexander Downer was spurred to inform the U.S. government about a May 2016 conversation he had in a London wine bar with Papadopoulos, in which Papadopoulos mentioned that Russia might have dirt on Secretary Clinton after hearing then candidate Trump say in July of 2016, Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails. But as the Washington Examiner pointed out, Special Counsel Mueller and Inspector Horowitz both concluded that Australia informed the United States of this conversation on July 26th, one day before Trump made the comment about Russia. Kind of a big mistake, no? Dude, that's at least a double. Come on. You do the right thing. Thank you. That's at least a double, Muttley, there. So the lead... This is unreal. The lead investigator in the case, this dunce, Strzok, writes a book. You know how many vets you go through with a book, by the way? There's usually an editor, then a copy edit, then another set of eyeballs, then the publisher will look at it, and then there's a legal review. I know, I've written 5 of them. The main premise of the whole book is wrong. We started this investigation into Trump because on July 27, Trump gave a speech and suggested that the Russians get Hillary's emails. And then the Australians came to us because they'd heard something similar. And they were so worried about this Trump speech that they came to us afterwards and told us about this conversation with Papadopoulos. No, dunce. The Australians came to you on July 26th, the day before the speech they hadn't even heard yet. Oh, my gosh, is this guy a moron? We have another screenshot from this, don't we? He says Strzok. So now listen to this. So now this is unbelievable, the stupidity here. So now he realizes he doesn't even know how his own case started. The Australians couldn't have tipped this off about a speech they haven't heard yet. So he says, quote, so I got that wrong. You think? So I was writing my book without the benefit of the notes. The FBI had those. Maybe don't write the book then, Pete. And the IG report had not been issued, Strzok said. He goes on, quote, what happened was there was a big dump through WikiLeaks that occurred prior. See, now he's retelling the story. Now, Joe, here's the version number 2 now. Yeah. So WikiLeaks there was a big dump through WikiLeaks that occurred prior to the Australians notifying us. And it's absolutely as the IG report describes it. The Australians saw the WikiLeaks dump that prompted their memory of the conversation Downer and Papadopoulos, and then they began the process of contacting us overseas and giving that information to us. My recollection is, and the reason why I mentioned that conversation about Trump's speech and Russia, are you listening, is when we finally, in the counterintelligence division, got that leak from the friendly foreign government. It was at the same time as Trump was making those comments, which were really concerning. Okay, so now this dunce can't remember how he started his own investigation. He's now suggesting, no, the Australians weren't tipping us off after the Trump speech because they tipped us off before the Trump speech. Now they were tipping us off because this Australian guy, Downer, this diplomat, spoke with Trump campaign associate George Papadopoulos. And Papadopoulos had mentioned something about emails, and WikiLeaks had dumped emails. Follow me, folks. I know following Peter Strzok, this moron's logic is really hard because he keeps changing his story. But so disregard the old story that he lied about, because that story is obviously not possible. The Australians can't tip us off about a speech they hadn't heard yet, okay? They tipped us off July 26th. The speech was July 27th. The news story is, no, they tipped us off about this collusion scheme and the Russians having Hillary's emails and giving them to Donald Trump on July 26th, not because of the Trump speech now, but because of the WikiLeaks dump. And they got really nervous that WikiLeaks dump was the subject of a conversation between Downer and Papadopoulos that happened on May 10th. Wait, what? Follow the logic here by this dunce now. Let's you want to do a simple timeline? So Papadopoulos meets with Downer, the Australian diplomat, on May 10th. Okay? So if the Australians were so concerned about the WikiLeaks dump of the allegedly hacked emails from the DNC, Joe, this is a hard question. If Papadopoulos and Downer are talking about these alleged emails that the Russians stole from the DNC and the alleged hack, we're still not sure about that. Wouldn't that have to have occurred before May 10th? I'm just asking.
Yeah.
If I was, it's not a trick question. I know you're puzzled because you're like, this is
I had
dumb.
to think about it for a second.
I know you because you're like, he's setting me up. I'm not setting you up. If I meet you in a restaurant, Joe, to tell you about emails that have been hacked from the DNC, wouldn't it make sense that the DNC would have had to already have been hacked?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I know you. Give me the eye. Again, George Papadopoulos is not the Stygian witches. So if he meets with Papadopoulos and Downer, if the meeting happens on May 10th about this hack of the DNC, dreaded air quotes hack, because we're still not sure it was a hack, right? Then it had to have happened before May 10th. Well, that's interesting. Let's go to the EC from the Mueller report. This is the opening document. The Legat received information from the redacted deputy chief of mission relating to the hacking of the Democrat National Committee's website and server. Okay, here they go again. So they're opening the case saying this definitely had to do with the hacking of the DNC server, which George Papadopoulos told Downer about in the emails. Well, when exactly was the DNC allegedly hacked? Strzok can't get anything right. It's hilarious. May 25th to June 1st in that time frame. So just to be clear, your first story fell apart because you're a dunce. Your second story is, no, we opened up the case because the Australians told us that the Russians may have these hacked emails from the DNC. Well, how do you know that, Pete? Because one of Trump's aides, Papadopoulos, told an Australian that on May 10th. Oh, he did? That's interesting because the DNC hadn't been hacked yet.
Fiction.
You're like, this can't possibly be true. No, it is. This is how dumb these guys. This guy cannot get his story right. Ladies and gentlemen, let me just give you the real story. Why did Peter Strzok in the FBI start the spying investigation against Donald Trump? because of the PP dossier, and they just don't want to admit it because it's a fake document. So they keep changing their story. No, we started it because the Australians tipped us off about a speech they hadn't heard yet. No, the Australians tipped us off about hacked DNC emails that hadn't been hacked by the time the Australians heard about it. Joe, this makes sense, right? Is everybody following the
I'm with you.
timeline? They can't.
Yep.
They just keep making it up.
Copy.
The DNC, according to Mueller's own report, hadn't been hacked, but until May 25th. How the hell could Papadopoulos tell Downer about it on May 10th? It hadn't happened yet. I would debate it hadn't happened at all, the hack. There's still no evidence the Russians did that. It didn't happen yet. Is this hard for anyone? Is anybody like, oh my gosh, this sounds really shady? So Strzok's first lie didn't work. Now he's on lie number 2, which doesn't work either.
You just heard Dan Bongino.